Hey folks, Mike Seeklander here with Century Martial Arts and the American Warrior Society, and I want to talk to you real quick about something that you can do with your bob called integrated training or weapon strikes with your handgun. Now here's the deal. One of the things that I got to talk to you about right away is the context of why we're doing a weapon strike. Meaning if you have a handgun in your hand, why would you ever strike someone with it versus just shoot them? And here's the real answer. There are times or cases where you may not be able to shoot because your handgun is unloaded, maybe you're empty, or it malfunctioned. Last but not least, there may be times where you don't want to shoot the person, but they're so close to you in that environment and doing something that causes you to want to either get them off you, which may require a light strike, to move offline and make other decisions. So the bottom line is, don't overthink the context. There are certainly a lot of different situations, if you think about it, where you can actually use a weapon strike. So what I want to show you real quick today is what I'm actually using to do the weapon strikes. This is the Wilson Combat EDC X9. I've got an unloaded firearm, and this is oftentimes how I practice in my home. I've got a safe backstop in the home, and I've got my bob with my base filled up fully with water. Now you're going to want to make sure you fill it up, because when you're doing these strikes, the two-handed strikes or the single-handed strikes, you're going to be making quite a bit of impact with bob. Now, last but not least, I also have a little orange tab in the magazine which allows me to insert the magazine so the gun feels just like it would normally feel, but the slide is fully cycling, okay? So one of the things that I want you to consider is when you're in a position in any environment, whether you're searching and moving through your house or searching and moving through a parking lot, is where should the gun be most of the time? So when I'm using my handgun and I'm searching, most of the time, if I'm not actually shooting, my gun is going to be at what I call a high ready position, right? So this is basically a compressed position where I can stay nice and relaxed, where my arms are close to my body, where I'm not extending the handgun out there and offering it to Bob or someone else that might be around the corner or whatever else, okay? So consider practicing from a high ready position. Now, one of the things about my high ready position you're going to see come into play here in a second is the muzzle is horizontal to the ground, meaning I don't take the muzzle and depress it down into this position. I don't bring the muzzle up for two reasons. If the muzzle is compressed down and Bob runs around the corner and bear hugs me, I'm going to end up like this between us, right? And I can't employ the firearm. I can't strike with it and I can't shoot with it. So if you can't shoot with your firearm and you can't strike with your firearm, then you're probably in a position that's not a great position. The second position I see people utilize a lot is this, and you can imagine if Bob was motivated and aggressive and I come around the corner like this with my muzzle high and he starts just to shove at me, where's the gun going to go? I'm literally going to eat my own firearm, which once again, I can't really strike very effectively with it, and I can't shoot very effectively with it, and I don't really want to eat it as well, right? So that's probably a bad position. So I'm going to recommend you're in the high ready position, okay? Now, what I like to do is practice basically initially a two-handed strike, build the position, and then dry fire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a nice solid, low aggressive fighting platform as if I lowered my weight and I realized there was someone in front of me. When I throw the strike, I'm actually going to be very, very careful to have my finger off the trigger and outside the trigger guard and alongside the slide. Remember, my intention at this point in time for this moment is not to shoot. The second half of the drill, however, you're going to see me pull the trigger. So what I'm going to do is be nice, wide, and aggressive. I'm going to throw a two-handed strike right into this notch right below the throat. Some of this soft tissue area. I don't want to hit the bone. I don't want to hit the collarbone. I don't want to hit the sternum. I want to have right here somewhere in the throat. But notice when I'm doing this, I'm staying kind of lower on that throat. What I found is when you start to throw the muzzle strike a little bit too high, you'll slide off the target, especially if someone's sweaty or they're bloody or you're in a really big fight. So I'm going to throw that two-handed strike straight out there, boom, powerful. And then I'm going to rebuild that high ready position, and I'm actually going to practice pulling the trigger. And the reason I'm pulling the trigger is, in this particular case, I'm assuming that a shot was needed, meaning I'm striking to get them off me, I'm striking to get their hands off my firearm, and I'm building a shooting position that I can use to shoot with. At that point in time, I'm going to tap and rack. If you want to practice moving offline when you do that, that's fine. And I get ready for the drill again. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to strike, boom, build a shooting position, and then pull the trigger, okay? Tap, rack, strike, boom, build a shooting position, and pull the trigger. And if you look at, where the actual muzzle ring here, the small rings on Bob, you can see it's right there in that little notch of the throat. So this is something where I really want to take them off balance and have effect on target, okay? The second thing you can practice is literally striking and moving offline. So in this particular case, let's say I'm just trying to strike because This is, and I'll give you a perfect example. A police officer friend of mine was in a house at one point in time. He's moving down a hallway, and a very large and aggressive 70-some-year-old female basically assaulted him. Now, she's got some mental issues going on or whatever else. He's got his handgun out. You know, she's mentally unfit, you know, for whatever reason, whatever she had going on. But he didn't want to shoot her at that point in time, but he had to get her off of him so she didn't get the firearm. So he did a strike and pushed her off, and then he moved offline and got past her, and they had the ability to effect an arrest. So that's an example of why you might use a technique like this. So the second thing I'll do is actually perform my strike, and then I'm going to start to move offline at an angle to the right or to the left. I'll go left first. So it would be strike, boom, and then offline to that position. I can practice the strike again, boom, offline to the right. And of course, you could add the shooting in portion too. So this time I'm going to strike and I'm going to shoot. So I'm going to strike, boom, and I'm going to shoot. Okay, work that slide, strike, and shoot. And every time I'm shooting, I'm paying attention to build a really good compressed high ready position where the muzzle is horizontal to the ground and I'm gripping the gun hard because I'm actually going to be firing. Now with your high ready, I want you to pay attention that you don't get the firearm too close to your chest, because if the firearm's too close to your chest, when the slide cycles, it may hit your chest and cause a malfunction, okay? The second thing I work on Bob with this integrated training is a single-handed strike. So imagine if I were in this position and Bob had arms and he tried to reach for my handgun. The last thing I want him to do is get his hands on my handgun. So at this distance, if I can't create space with my legs, I need to create space with my arms. So to do that, I'm going to retract the handgun to what I call an extreme close quarter position. So I'm literally taking the handgun, I'm retracting it all the way to my side, literally as far back as I can pull it. And while I do that position, I'm actually going to strike into Bob's face. I'm going to try to get some fingers in his eyes, maybe up into the throat. I want to try to get that head and that chin backwards, because what I want to do at that point in time is get him or her off my gun and get into a better position. Now, I can strike, you know, boom, and then move offline. I can strike and build that same position where I'm literally striking, boom, and shooting, okay? Now, when I shoot, you got to remember the position is in a slight downward angle. So what I mean by that is, when I build the shooting position, you'll notice that my muzzle is slightly down. The reason it's slightly down is because I'm targeting the pelvic girdle area, right? I want those shots to go into the pelvis bone, and the groin area. I don't want to keep the muzzle up in the upper chest area or the upper face area, because think about this for a second. I'm putting my hand up there as well. So when I'm doing my strike and shoot, I want to be in a position where I could literally still have my fingers inside their eyes to keep them off my handgun, but I could be pulling the trigger because the shots are going down here. And hopefully those shots going into the pelvic area, hitting that bone and fragmenting or doing whatever else, will stop him or her from doing what they're doing. They'll stop trying to harm me, maybe even lose their mobility, and I can gain some distance and get out of the area or decide what to do next, okay? So once again, when I'm working that single-handed strike and shoot, I'm starting from the high ready. I'm going to build my position. Watch how my hand rolls off the gun. I never go in front of the muzzle. Strike, and I'm going to go, you know, up into the eyes, up into the chin. I really want to get the head back like this. Build my shooting position and then fire my shots. Now notice my feet. It's like they're in a really strong position, like I'm trying to push something. Very, very squared up. I don't blade off like this, because if I blade off like this, you know, those of you that are, you know, standing grapplers or wrestlers know that if I start to blade and turn my body, that makes it easier for him to get my back. So I stay squared up when I'm doing this position into the strike and shoot technique. So one more time for you. This is a build the position, roll off the handgun, strike, and then shoot. Boom, boom, boom. If he went down, I'd bring that second hand back. I'd start to clear, get into position where I could scan, give commands, get my family members, you know, get out of the environment, whatever else I needed to do, okay? So there you have it, a single-handed and a two-handed striking system where you can start to think about the context that you're working on, where you're able to build a good striking position as well as a good shooting position with single or both hands, and then do what you would do next, which may be get offline, create some space or some distance, give additional commands, maybe, you know, extend into a full firing position. Whichever you got to do, the situation is going to warrant it, okay? Now, I've showed you how to practice this dry fire, whether you're using a plastic gun or an unloaded safe firearm with a safe backstop or something like a cool fire trainer. Whatever you're going to use, practice it dry fire first a bunch of times before you ever try this live fire, okay? But here in just a few minutes, I'm going to show you what it looks like live fire.
you.